lost last week because
Peyton
Manning went out. I know, blah, blah, blah. You knew he was going to go out. Well, then you can't draft anybody if you think the team's going to do good all year and they're going to pull him out of your playoffs.
You have to give yourself a good backup. I mean, you have to give yourself somebody to put in. But, season to season, things change. Sometimes teams have it wrapped up earlier. Sometimes they don't. But, I think fantasy football needs to stay consistent and at least go through week 16, just to get everything in there. Because it's not every year that there are several teams, and we were talking about this during the break, that there are several teams that are sitting guys. It's usually this late in the season, it's a team or two that are sitting guys that, that have it locked up, and everyone else still has something to play for. But this year, there's so many teams that are just putting guys out that it makes it seem, a lot worse than it usually is.
Well, we were talking about there's a lot of teams with a lot of wins this year.
But yeah, for a couple of years, teams stopped yanking their players until midway through the fourth quarter. But I haven't really seen anybody get yanked since Priest Holmes when he broke that record. He got taken out halfway through the game and costed me a championship. But I don't know, 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago, I can't remember how long ago it was.
It is different, though, this year because there's 8 teams. We were talking about there's 8 teams with 5 wins or less. Okay, so those are horrible teams, and most of their guys you don't want on your fantasy team, all right?
Right.
So then that means that there's several teams with 10 or more wins, and at this time of the year, they're just not risking it, so you really don't want those guys on your team right now either.
Yeah, and that's just not the norm.
But that's not normal, right? Usually there's a lot. I mean, the NFC's done.
Yeah.
Everyone, we know what's going on in the NFC, that they're just playing for seeds right now.
All right, well, you guys have a good rest of the show, and see you next year.
All right,
thanks a lot. 529-1450 is the phone number. Let's take another one. Good morning. You're on Fantasy Football 101. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Mike here. First off,
Mike?
Thanks for the help all year. I remember when I was calling in and saying, Johnny Knox or Rashard Mendenhall.
Yeah.
But big question, not because I'm not out of the playoffs, because I'm not, but for everyone out there, what's the biggest keeper league advice you guys can give?
How many keepers are we talking?
Well, let's say we're talking, in one of my leagues, we're saying 6 or 7.
6 or 7. And then Mark and I are in a league where we keep 2. Eric's got one going where they keep all of them.
Yeah, whoever you want, yeah. I would say the biggest, depending on how the format goes, a lot of times however many guys you keep affects where you draft. You have to, sit out as many rounds as guys that you keep. And probably the best piece of advice would be, don't keep a guy that you'd be able to draft. A lot of guys, stretch and hold on to somebody who they think is going to be a sleeper for next year, and they keep them and cost themselves a draft pick when all likeliness you can just get them a little bit later in the draft, like a Marshawn Lynch maybe going into this year.
Yeah, keep known quantities. Don't keep guys, like Eric says, that you think, well, he may be a guy next year that will break out. No,
that's fine if you think that. Just draft
him earlier. But yeah, just make sure you keep your studs. And boy, I think it's proven again this year, running backs and more so than the last few years, wide receivers, unless you get 6 points per touchdown pass, quarterbacks you just don't keep.
Yeah.
You just don't do it.
So on that note, who's a better keeper, Steve Smith of Carolina or Jonathan Stewart?
Ooh. Is it point per reception?
Yes.
Boy, that is a really, really tough.
If you knew what the quarterbacking situation was going to be in Carolina, Steve Smith would blurt out right out of my mouth immediately.
Yeah, but you have to think now. With John Stewart's starting to look pretty good. This is a young back. His stock's only going to rise. He's got nowhere to go but up. And, running backs are the most coveted position in fantasy football. You might really have to think about keeping John Stewart over Steve Smith. But, at this point, I think you have to wait and see what happens in the offseason a little bit and see kind of what Carolina's going to put on the field next year. And then, see what's going to happen with D'Angelo Williams and the whole situation. But, right now, initially, I'd be leaning John Stewart. That's crazy. Yeah.
The off season. You guys have been great all year. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
You also don't know who's going to be the coach. Is Fox going to be back there?
Yeah,
Who knows?
Don't know.
Well, one of the things, though, too, I thought in both the leagues I played in is that wide receivers were a lot harder to come by, though, than running backs. It seemed you could get on the waiver wire and find a running back or two, but wide receivers was slim pickings. I had a Hakeem Nicks playing in one of my Super Bowls. I mean, that's not something you want to be doing, you know. So I would lean towards Steve Smith, but right now, you know, with all the coaching situation and all that going on down there, I mean, D'Angelo Williams has still a big contract. So Stewart's got to play behind him no matter what, unless he breaks his leg. That's the only chance he's got. But I think you can find another running back, same caliber as Stewart. I don't think you can find another wide receiver, same caliber as Steve Smith. A lot of question marks out there this week as far as guys with Q's by their names with injuries. Derek Mason is questionable this week, and the Ravens actually have something to play for this week, but keep that in mind when you're filling out your roster. Ricky Williams, questionable this week, left the game last week. Does Miami still have a chance, or after their loss last week, are they done?
I was just looking at that.
They're done, actually.
Miami clinches a playoff spot with, if they win their game, the Jets lose, Baltimore loses, Houston loses, and Jacksonville loses or ties.
So they do have a chance.
They've got a chance, but they need the stars to align perfectly.